This One News update is brought to you by ANZ, proud sponsor of the New Zealand Olympic team.
Kia ora, good evening. A fast-tracked hearing's underway at the Waitangi Tribunal, which could approve a major hurdle for the government's asset sales program.
The tribunal's considering two claims from the Māori Council, including one over the ownership of water. But Prime Minister John Key is shrugging off the challenge. Aaron Soma reports.
As representatives from 10 iwi and hapu stepped onto Lower Hutt's Waiwhetu marae, their plea was passionate.
The water is a part of the holistic makeup of the Māori. So the origins of the water will come from the ancient Māori gods in the same way that we do.
The iwi, represented by the Māori Council, asked for this urgent Waitangi claim hearing over water rights and whether they're being denied a stake in the asset sale process.
The government for the first time is starting to talk about the allocation of water rights, but is talking in a way which assumes there were no prior rights.
That's because the partial sale of state-owned energy assets is imminent, and Mighty River Power is first off the block, and it alone has 9 hydropower stations.
You are making an assumption that people can use a resource at zero cost, and you can't unscramble that. Once you put that first sale of shares through.
Ngā Puhi from the far north wants greater consultation.
They're talking about something that concerns us, and yet we're not allowed to be a part of the conversation.
The Waitangi Tribunal can make recommendations, but its decisions aren't binding for the government.
We could choose to ignore whatever findings they might have. I'm not saying we would, but we could.
That's a very serious issue. It should be taken very seriously by all people.
The Green Party has hit out at Mr Key's comment, saying the tribunal needs to make its decision free from any political posturing. Meanwhile, the Labour Party says National's asset sale plan could cost taxpayers full compensation if the Māori Council's claim is upheld. The Prime Minister concedes this case could end up in the High Court or the Court of Appeal if the government rejects the tribunal's findings. Aaron Soma, One News.
Joining us now with some analysis is political editor Corin Dan. Corin, is this likely to derail the sale process?
Well, it's hard to tell just yet, but there's no doubt this is a very awkward situation for the government with the tribunal's findings. Yes, as we heard John Key say there, they can disregard it, but to run roughshod over it or simply trash those findings, it would then run the risk of inflaming relationships with Māori, which it has worked on very hard over the last few years. In my view, there's no doubt that the court action is the bigger risk to derailing this process, but I can tell you the government, while it acknowledges that's a significant risk, has done a lot of work to be ready for that and believes it has a strong case, but which basically is that it can argue it's dealing with these issues of water rights and Māori rights in a separate place, and that it is actually genuinely dealing with those issues. Therefore, it doesn't need to get caught up with this process of the sale and a company in Mighty River Power. OK, well, what will it mean for investors if things don't go to plan? Yeah, well, I spoke to a few key people amongst the financial community today, and I have to say I was a little surprised. There is actually a bit of anxiety and concern amongst them about this process. One likened it a little bit to perhaps buying a house with an unconsented room downstairs. Now someone's probably still going to buy that, but they might just want a little bit of a discount or some compensation for that extra risk that asset might carry. Of course, the problem now for the government is they're going to have to spell out any potential risk around water rights in the prospectus, which is essentially the sales document, if you like, or the brochure when they go to the sales process. They've got to do that in plain English. That's the law that was passed just a couple of years ago on this. That's not going to be an easy task.
All right, thanks for the update, Corin Dan.
This One News update is brought to you by ANZ, proud sponsor of the New Zealand Olympic team.